Yo, what's up, everybody? So, this video has nothing to do with politics, but as I mentioned in the first video, 30 videos in 30 days, not every video is going to be about politics, but I wanted to take my time and sort of let you guys in on this story. This is a very true story, and I haven't told a whole lot of people about it. But years ago, and by years ago, I mean I was still in college, and I used to drive this Cutlass, right? It was a car that was passed down to me from my mother, and the Cutlass ended up essentially breaking down, and it was undrivable. I kept busting head gaskets in that damn thing, and it was essentially undrivable. So, and at the time, I was going to college out in Corpus Christi, and I had to go back home to Dallas for the summer to try to work and get another car, right? And because my mama didn't have no money to just be giving me another car like that, so I had to work, and that's when sort of I was already in the gym industry. I had worked in the gym industry before, and obviously me being a track and field athlete, that was sort of a natural sort of thing with me to be in the gym industry, and that was my first sort of bigger gig in the gym industry. And so I got on at this gym. I'm not gonna say the name of it only because I don't want to jeopardize them for what sort of occurred, even though what happened didn't really have anything to do with them. But the story isn't really even relevant, but I don't want to put them on the line like that. So I was working at this particular gym, and I would always pick up hours. I'm a workhorse in general. I don't sleep a whole lot, never have really slept a whole lot, certainly when I was younger. I mean, I'm only 28 now, but certainly when I was younger in my early 20s, I I didn't sleep a whole lot. And I was a workhorse. I was always down to work. And keep in mind that I had this car that I needed to get. So I came in as an overnight. This was a 24-hour facility gym. And I picked up the overnight. That was the easiest job for me to pick up, simply because I needed something ASAP. And on top of that, that's a position that not a whole lot of people are willing to fill. Plus, obviously, me being a service rep at night pays more than what it does in the morning because of that. So I would always, well, first of all, it started with me working the overnight shifts, and that was it. And then I would pick up other shifts, not just other people's overnight shifts. I started getting, I got trained up on night shift, and the morning shift was a little different. So I got trained up on doing all of that. So started picking up morning shifts. Even if the morning shifts were on the same day that I worked the night shift, again, I needed the money, and I'm already a workhorse. I did a video a long, long time ago talking about how I'm comfortable with not being comfortable. And again, it was a grind, and I recognized I needed the car, and it wasn't anything to me for me to work multiple times throughout the day. Maybe other people thought that sucked, but that was all. It was all gravy for me to do that. But there was just one man that made note of that, and he would come in specifically when I'd come in about 10 o'clock at night, and then I work all the way to, well, it's probably a little earlier than that, but I work essentially all the way until the morning time, so 7 o'clock-ish. And certainly during that early morning period, there was this Asian man who would come up there all the time. And it first started with him and I having these sort of just basic conversations, because at the time I was also taking summer courses, and I would be reading like whatever book I was reading for class or anything like that. I would be doing that as sort of my downtime, as people would start coming in after I did everything that I needed to do back there at the gym itself. And the front, before, because you get that little block period where it was like, let's say 4 in the morning, you did everything that you had to do 4 in the morning to maybe right before, between 4 and 6, you start getting people that start trickling in. And this man would be one of the first ones that were coming in, and he saw that I was reading all the time, and started asking me about it. I tell him, hey, I'm just taking classes and whatnot. It's like, so you're working his job, taking classes. That's awesome, stuff like that. So every time that he come in, he commend me for that. And as him and I got, let's say, more comfortable speaking with each other over that course of those couple of months, towards the latter half, he would talk to me about himself, right? And how he was an immigrant, how he came over here with next to nothing. He was sleeping in sort of these areas with other particular immigrants and didn't have nothing to his name for the most part when he first got here. And now him being sort of, semi-successful in the fields that he was in. All that stuff isn't necessarily important to the story, but I remember this time, and this was one of the last times that I saw him. He comes up, he's like, man, I see you up here studying all the time. And, you work. Sometimes I come and work out different times throughout the day, and you're still here. And he puts $200 right in front of the desk, right? And he's trying to slide me this, like, two bills, right? And I'm sitting there like, obviously, I can't accept that, right? I can't. This man would not, he just wouldn't let me accept this $200. Or excuse me, he would not let me, like, push the $200 off of. He was like, essentially, I don't want to say he was forcing it upon me, but he was like, look, man, take this $200. So eventually I ended up taking it. And I'm like, why are you giving me this? And, he would talk about his personal struggle and talk about what he'd see me doing and working hard and numerous hours so I can get to where I needed to get, specifically to get my car. And he was like, I just see you grinding. It reminds me of some, what I would do when I was, a little, your age and younger. So here, like, keep that. And that instant, right? This was a guy that I only knew in passing, right? But in that instant, it had this everlasting sort of effect on me because this man didn't know who I was, other than what we had spoke about. But he was willing to drop that much money on just this kid that was working to get this car. And it had this lasting effect. And since then, I've always had in my mind that somebody's watching, no matter how hard. And if you're working hard, if you're doing the things you're supposed to do, somebody's watching. And even when it feels like, because, it didn't feel like anybody would make note of that, right? But somebody's watching. And it goes both ways, right? And that man had this lasting impact. Again, I'm probably never going to see him, but that story sticks with me all the time. And I'll never forget his face. If I saw him right now, even, 9 years after the fact, I would know exactly who he was. And I wish I could tell him that sort of lasting effect that he had on me in my life. And just that summer, that brief sort of summer. And I don't take things for granted. And I'm always keeping in mind that somebody's watching, right? Somebody is watching. And if you're doing the right things, you never know what could happen. But the blessing goes both ways. And that I find myself every now and then, somebody comes up and down my timeline and I drop a lump sum of money, on somebody that may need something, and a donation of any type. And you just never know how much that can not only help somebody, but that lasting effect and you just having those sorts of conversation. It wasn't about just the money per se, but just the fact that you can have that sort of conversation with some individual and you can make a change positively. The man had a lasting effect, and I didn't know him that long, and I didn't know incredibly a lot about him, just what he had told me. And I just want everybody to keep that sort of in mind, that somebody's watching somewhere. If you're grinding, you're doing what you got to do. But just know in acknowledging that for somebody on the other end, what kind of impact, something that small, and what kind of impact that can have on them.